And welcome to another episode of the Kids Ministry Collective podcast. My name's Tom Bump, and I'm your host. Thanks for joining me, my friends. I am so glad that you are here. On the Kid Ministry Collective, we are truly all about giving you insightful strategies and helping empower your ministry journeys. And so, this episode is all about setting the stage for an unstoppable ministry season. Whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting out, I know these tips are going to help you and will encourage and guide you to maximizing your impact, which is what we all want to do. We all want to grow God's kingdom in a greater way. And so, before I start into this episode, I want to remind you that kidminplus.net is a community that was built for you. I believe it's the best leadership membership community on the internet today. Why? Because it's fresh, it's new, it's not just old stuff thrown into a group. This is built for you, a place where you can be known, where you can find community, and where you can grow and develop all the things that you need to build a healthy leadership and healthy teams and an impactful ministry. I want to challenge you to go take a look at kidminplus.net. We've got a couple different uh, platforms that you can join depending on what you're looking for. And as always, if you have any questions about it or want to check it out, just email me at tom@tombump.com. Tell me you heard about it on the podcast, and I'll even set up a special preview for you. All right, let's dive into setting the stage. 5 tips that are going to help you set the stage for an unstoppable ministry season. Tip number 1, you need to schedule a vision day. I sometimes call these shut up and listen days. I know you've heard me talk about them before on the podcast, and if you haven't, well, you're going to hear about it now. I truly believe every ministry leader needs to schedule some time to get away from the office and ask God to speak. Now, you should be doing this every day, I know, but there's something about setting aside an intentional time where you can ask God for his vision for what you're doing. You don't want to just be saying, hey, God, bless what I'm doing. You want to know what God's up to and go join him in it. That's an old Henry Blackaby idea, but it's true and it works. One of the things that I've done over the years is set aside time where I do what I call a vision day or shut up and listen day. I want this to be the cornerstone of every ministry season I'm in. I want this to be a bedrock time and place for me to stay focused and renewed and restored in ministry. And so I dedicate time where I get away out of my normal rhythm, out of my normal routine, and I set that time aside where I can be still and quiet, where I can worship, and where I can listen. I usually take a bottle of water, maybe some snacks, my Bible, a journal, and that's it. And I go off somewhere and I sit. A lot of times I like it out in nature, so I find a quiet park, a trail that I can go walk on, and then I find a spot and I sit. And I say, okay, Father, here I am. I want to hear from you. I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to be still and let the thoughts of my mind and the meditations of my heart be from your spirit. And may you speak clearly to me. And then I sit. And as thoughts come to my mind, I write them down and I don't try to figure things out right away, but I ask God for his design for my life, for my family, for my ministry. If you struggle with work-life balance, this is one of the best practices I can recommend, is scheduling the shut up and listen day, or AKA the vision day. This is a time for you to be quiet and listen. This is also a time for you to dream, plan, and set those plans in action. It's about crafting that roadmap and having some clear end goals for the next season of ministry, and then saying, how am I going to reach those goals? What do I need to do? What do I need to learn? Who do I need to uh, get involved with me and ask them to join me? What steps do I need to take to make this a reality? So, this vision day or shut up and listen day turns into a time to let God's creativity flow through you. All right. So, that's tip number one, schedule it. I would encourage you to pause the podcast right now and get your calendar out and schedule it. Because if you don't do it now, you're not going to do it. All right. Second thing that I would do on a regular basis if I was going to ask God for an impactful ministry season is I would regularly have team debriefs. I would be asking myself, not just at the end of a year, but throughout the year, at minimum quarterly, where I would gather my team together for the sole purpose of saying, hey, what's working well? I want to know, what insights do they have? What areas of concern do they have? What celebrations have they seen? I want to know. I also want to ask the question, what is it that I need to know and become more aware of? What do I need to celebrate? And where can we improve? You see, having a time of team debrief at minimum of a quarterly will help you stay on top of things. If you wait to do this at the end of a ministry year or a calendar year, you're going to have things that you won't be able to deal with. And I always told my team, I don't want a history lesson. I want to stay so in tune with what we're doing that I'm on top of it. And I can't be on top of it unless I'm constantly asking for that feedback and debriefing with my team. Now, I also think you ought to be doing this every week and finding ways for your team to communicate. But you should be doing a deeper dive, whether it's a SWOT analysis or something like that. But you need to be sitting down with your team and doing a deeper insight look at what's going on in your team. Where do you need to recruit? What's coming down the road that you need to be ready for? But get yourself ready. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, invest in your personal growth. If you want seasons of ministry, kingdom building growth, where lives are being changed, you need to invest in personal growth. Ministry leadership requires consistent growth. Whether it's a thought-provoking book, a podcast, coaching, a conference, you need to make an investment in yourself. You need to budget money for learning. There were seasons where I didn't go to conferences. I hired my coach. There were other seasons where I went to different conferences and not just the same one. One of the sad things I see sometimes is some leaders just get so hooked on one conference, they don't ever go try anything new. I want to challenge you. If you really want to grow, you need to get in different circles sometimes. You can't just listen to the same thought leader all the time. That's dangerous. You need to learn from other people. So try some new things. If you're stuck, let me know. I can point you in some directions of some fantastic leaders that I listen to, and I'm always looking for new ones. So feel free to share some with me. I'd love to know, who are you listening to? Who influences your ministry leadership? But every leader is a growing leader, and every leader needs to know that they are worth investing in. One of the things that I do with KMC Coach is I help leaders invest in themselves. I help them work on their identity. I help them work on their skill sets. I help them find healthy rhythms so that their work-life balance stays in a proper place. I help them build boundaries. I help them create systems for getting things done. That's amongst a few things that we do. But I have leaders that have invested in themselves and do one-on-one coaching. I've had people say, well, Tom, I don't think I could afford coaching. Well, here's the deal. If you message me at tom@tombump.com and say, I'm interested in coaching, and you'll set up a 30-minute clarity call with me. And you can just go to kmccoach.net and do this right now. If you'll set it up and you'll let me know that you heard about this on the podcast, for a limited time, I'm offering a special deal, if you want to call it that, a pricing offer, where I'm not going to be doing this for long, and I'm not going to be doing it for a ton of people. It's going to be a limited time, and I will coach anybody who's interested in investing in themselves. You've got to be willing to invest, but I'll make that investment affordable, and I'll make it worth it your while. I have served a lot of leaders over the last few years, and every one of them has had growth. One of my leaders, we made a plan on what we would do if you doubled your ministry. And in a couple of months' time, they doubled their ministry, but they had their plan and they didn't panic, and their leadership was blown away because the plan was already in place. They had already prepared for the growth, and God brought it because they were ready for it. Sometimes the reason why the ministry isn't growing is because we as leaders aren't ready for the growth. We wouldn't know what to do with the more volunteers. We wouldn't know what to do with more children. Why? Because we have not grown and we haven't led ourselves. So tip number 3, if you want a powerful ministry season, is you've got to be willing to invest in your own personal growth. The last thing, or not the last thing, but tip number 4 is you need to be planning for intentional rest. Now, every leader talks about this. I've talked about it on the podcast many, many times. And yet I still see leaders talking about how worn out and how on the edge of burnout they are. Listen, a thriving leader is a rested leader. And you need to evaluate how you can incorporate seasons of rest, periods of rest into your schedule to help you refocus, renew, and restore, to help you sustain and be consistent with your energy throughout the year. A full cup spills over, blessing all of those around you, but an empty cup does nothing and does no one any good. Ministry leader, it's time to get serious about your rest, about taking your days off, about using your vacation time, about setting up boundaries where you have to say no to things so that you can say yes to the best. You need to make sure that you have on your calendar those times. Listen, sometimes when the season that we're in is so busy, you have to schedule 15 minutes at the beginning of your day, maybe in the middle, and maybe at the end. Give yourself 15 minutes. Maybe it's 15 minutes in the car before you go into the office. Maybe it's 15 minutes before you go into your house. Maybe it's 15 minutes to walk around a parking lot or in your building if it's in the winter and you're in the north. But planning for some intentional time where you're not working and that you're resting and you're renewing yourself, you're worshiping, is important. You need to plan for it. So I would encourage you, even right here, pause the podcast, pull out your calendar, give yourself at least 4 quarterly days where you can stop for a day or 2 and rest. Schedule 15 minutes into your calendar and make it repeat and make it non-negotiable. If somebody says, "Hey, can I talk to you during this?" No, sorry, I got an appointment. I can meet with you about 15 to 20 minutes after that. You don't have to tell them what you're doing, but you need to make this a non-negotiable. Trust me. Tip number 5, and I can't say this loud enough and more firm enough, and not make you believe that this is just a cliche statement, because this is the truth. You need to pray boldly. You need to truly remember and embrace the power of prayer. If you want an impactful season, you need to seek the Lord, and you need to ask Him for the trust and the faith to do the impossible. I want to challenge you to open your heart to what God wants you to do in the next season, wherever that is and whatever you're in. And ask God to do more than you could even ask or imagine. It's about praying boldly and trusting deeply. It really is. And one of the things that I am praying for boldly in this next season for me is that God would allow me to serve more ministry leaders, to coach them and one-on-one coaching journeys, to impress upon them and encourage them and equip them through Kidmin Plus, to be a light and an encouragement and a guide in the Kid Ministry Collective groups and on this podcast. My prayer for you is that you see more children come to Jesus in the next season than you've seen before. That you've seen other kids taking deeper steps in discipleship, that you've seen parents embrace the call to lead their homes in a spiritual way, that we will see churches get healthy from the leadership side, from the inside out, so that we can see a change in our world. As we wrap up this episode, remember, planning an unstoppable ministry season lies in vision, reflection, growth, rest, and prayer. And my prayer as I wrap this episode up is take these tips, embrace them and implement them, and craft a year and a season that not only changes your ministry, but changes you and resonates beyond even your reach. Until next time, my friends, keep pushing the boundaries forward, breaking down the strongholds, and trust God for the amazing journey ahead. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. I'm here to serve and to help. If I can pray with you and encourage you, I'd love to do that. That's going to wrap up this episode of the Kids Ministry Collective podcast. Thanks for listening, my friends, and stay tuned for another episode real soon.